Well, it's a pretty standard story. I graduated from college in Macalester College in St. Paul, Minnesota in May of 1968. And within, I don't know, a month or so, received my draft notice. At that point, the student deferments for graduate school had ended. You couldn't get a deferment for going to grad school. I had a full ride scholarship to go to Harvard University to pursue graduate studies, and yet that meant nothing. So I was faced with a pretty standard choice. Do I go to the war or do I not go to the war? It was, do I say no? And there were various ways of saying no. You could, just let yourself be hauled off to jail, or you could seek a conscientious objector status, or you could go to, another country, Canada probably. And I wrestled with the question all summer long in the summer of '68, trying to figure out what was the right thing to do, and never really made a decision to, let myself go to the war. It was more a default or a kind of forfeiture. I just let gravity take over, let events take me to the war. I did contemplate going to Canada. I grew up in Minnesota, and that was on the Canadian border, so logistically it would have been a pretty easy thing to do. Just get in my car and drive for 7 or 8 hours, and I'd be at the Canadian border. But I felt all the pressures that many of us felt at the time, the pressures of conscience, and I loved my country, didn't want to leave it. I was fearful of small Minnesota towns' censor of leaving. The humiliation and the ridicule and being thought of as a coward. Even though my conscience said to me this war is not a good one, it seemed to me that there was no sense of consensus for the war. Families were divided. There were protests in the street. Congress was divided. And so when the smart people in their pinstripe suits and couldn't make their minds up about the rectitude of the war, I thought that's not a good sign that this is a war that we should be fighting.